Welcome to another episode of a VETtoCEO guest speaker gig. We take the best speaker appearances from our Veterans Business Accelerator program and make them available to you because we believe this good can't be kept to ourselves. Enjoy the episode. It's going to be an amazing journey.
So I know you've been anxiously awaiting this. I know I have. We've got Gilbert up as our guest speaker for tonight. Gilbert also sponsored this module. We appreciate his support. I'm not going to try and introduce Gilbert beyond that. He's a great guy. He's a Navy guy. He's out on the West Coast. If you're interested in franchising, I encourage you to reach out and contact Gilbert, and he will help you. So Gilbert, over to you.
All right. Well, thanks, Mike. Thanks, John. I'm really excited to be here with you guys all. A lot of brilliant things. I love what you guys are doing with Slack, with the questions, but I definitely have some comments on what everybody is sharing. So yes, I am the designated Navy guy. I'm here in San Diego. And as a Navy veteran, somebody that is a prior enlisted nuclear submarine mechanic turned surface warfare officer, I found a lot of success when I came out of the Navy. And usually most people will put their transition picture as, that half more picture of you in uniform with half of you in a suit. But I think this is a better representation of my transition. It was ugly, right? So I did find success climbing the corporate ladder right out of the military and, went up to becoming a manager to a director. And what I realized is that I absolutely hated what I did. So if you think about passion, I really was just chasing the dollar signs. That's all I was doing. And it ended up, I ended up realizing that I just hated what I was doing. And I think what they call it now is quiet quitting, because that's exactly what I was doing. I was that dude that was in my office, just moping around, just hated everything. I even got mobilized for a year when I was a reservist and thinking that was a solution. I came back, I hated it even more. And so just like Mike shared, he got fired. I got demoted because I just got back from a deployment and they couldn't fire me. Quit. So it ended up becoming a blessing in disguise. And that phase was really me being a failure, because that was the first time I really just got punched in the face professionally and also personally. I didn't come from an entrepreneurial family, but I did have a lot of friends that were entrepreneurs. Actually, a really great roommate that he ended up, having this really successful restaurant in Los Angeles. He ended up franchising, and they're all over the country now. He was a great influence in my life to realize that there was actually something that's even better than what I was doing. And it was just this mind shift I needed. And also with the help of reading books like 4-Hour Work Week and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, really transformed my mind to know that, hey, I actually was an entrepreneur, a very entrepreneurial person. I just didn't have that idea. So I started a couple of different things, failed. I thought I had the best idea of creating the first shirt stay for civilian. Somebody that really loved having their, uniform sharp and wanting to have that in my civilian life. Of course, that didn't work out because I didn't come from the fashion industry. But I did create a pretty great business on the side. When you talk about bootstrapping, it didn't cost me, I think it cost me like $200 to start my business, but I was able to make that really profitable to a point where I was able to quit my job after a year, which was great. And so what I do now is, as a franchise broker, along with my businesses, is I'm a coach. I help veterans and their families, and also non-veterans, be able to achieve their entrepreneurial dreams through franchising, which I work throughout the nation, assisting people and educating people to understand what franchising is about. So I'm going to talk a little bit about marketing. I got a couple slides here in regards to franchise. So if you all have not heard of a business model, or if you're actually spending all this time creating a business plan without a business model, I highly recommend you look at the business model. And looking at the business model with the heart of the business model being the value proposition, which Mike shared. And that value proposition is understanding your customer's pain point. That gut-wrenching, sickening pain point that they just need fixed and they need a solution. And for you to have that product that will help alleviate that. That's that perfect product market fit. And the other part of that equation is also what differentiates you from your competition. Is it your patent? Is it the way that you're reaching your customers through your marketing? Or is it just some special sauce, if you will? Because if you don't have that special sauce, a lot of times what you're doing is you're just competing for discount. Oh, I'm going to provide that 1% discount or that 2% discount. Kind of like what you see in the burger wars right now with everybody trying to get that $5 value meal below the other competition, right? And so when it comes to franchising and business models, that's still super important, right? Because you know what John mentioned was like, hey, franchising is a great solution because they have figured it out. The only caveat I have to that is the good franchise, because not every franchise is built the same. There's a lot that is out there that, hey, maybe somebody created this mom and pop business last year, had a good idea, created a franchise. Doesn't mean that they're a great franchise, right? And so make sure you understand that, hey, what is that franchise's value proposition and is it a solid value proposition, right? And so with that, I want you to also consider yourself as a customer or a consumer buying a franchise. Because when you're looking to buy a franchise, you want to understand your value proposition as well. So, for example, if you understand your pain points, right? What are your pain points as a consumer of somebody buying a franchise? You want to understand, like, okay, what are my weaknesses? What are my strengths? Do I absolutely suck at sales? Well, you don't want to buy a franchise where, that's your main role, right? Or you need to have that strength as a business owner in that franchise because there just wouldn't align there. When we look at franchising and what you're buying and cost, and, there's a lot to it. And, there'll be other discussions about that. But essentially, when you pay a franchise fee, that's your pay to play. On average, is between $40,000 to $50,000. That's really for them to allow you to be part of them and to train you, right? But also, what that does is it provides you a protected territory where the franchise cannot sell another franchise inside of your area. If it's a service-based business like a cleaning company or whatever, you may have a grouping of zip codes, so something larger. But if it's a restaurant or a retail or like a gym, it may be as small as a 3-mile radius. And so that's also another important thing to look at in franchising because, again, the good franchises will protect your territory. And then I've also seen other franchises, it's a free for all, right? They'll sell as many other franchises inside of your general area. And so when you look at competition, not only are you competing with the other franchises of different brands and also the other mom and pops, but then you have that weird, interesting dynamic that you're now kind of competing with franchisees in your own business, which could be kind of challenging, right? And then when we look at support, such as marketing support, that's why you're buying your franchise. Like they're going to be teaching you, they're going to be supporting you on how to do this. Well, that's where you're paying that royalty and that marketing fee. The royalty, on average, between 6 to 7%, you're paying the franchisor every month off of your gross sales for the life of your business, whether that be 5 or 10 years, right? And then you may have also, well, you will have an additional marketing fee where they're going to set a certain amount, or you may have a minimum spend that you got to spend. And so it's really important when you look at those fees that you feel really good about it, right? I mean, I'm telling you, you got to feel really good about the fact that you're paying that franchise 7% and you're paying that marketing of whether it be 2% or whatever it is every month, that you're pleased with it. Because the challenge will be if you're not aligned with the level of support they're providing you, whether that be enough support or too much support or too little support, if there's no alignment there, then there's going to be a lot of bad friction going on. You're going to hate that franchise and you're going to be one of those people on social media that says franchising is terrible. I say that you just found the wrong franchise. So when we go into, marketing and support and getting that alignment of yourself and also that franchise, a lot of that has to do with how do they do marketing? What makes their franchisee successful in marketing? For example, there's some franchises that they're just an old school industry, right? Like, for example, there's this mobility care type of business where they sell wheelchairs and scooters and hospital beds. Well, they're not really big in social media marketing because their target market are a lot seniors that need those type of products. And so what it takes is just guerrilla marketing, going to the hospitals, going to the senior homes and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. They just know what works, right? And then another thing is there's a lot of great franchises that they go above and beyond when it comes to digital marketing because they know and realize that that's what sets them apart from the mob paws that are out there because they have the resources, expertise. So a lot of great things when it comes to marketing from franchises, but it's a matter of you doing your own due diligence to ensure that they are providing that type of support and sophistication and marketing that's aligned with what your needs are. So what have I seen wrong? Marketing mistakes. So I've seen ones with weak value proposition. Mike mentioned niches. I'm a big proponent of the niches. They say that riches are in the niches, but I love them. I love the franchises where, like, for example, commercial cleaning companies, there are a dime a dozen out there. But not only do I love B2B, because you got your contract, reoccurring revenue coming in every month, but I also love the ones that focus on a specific customer segment, such as I know one that they focus only on churches, hospitals, schools, and warehouses. So when you think about that, how that differs from just cleaning normal offices, it's definitely a game changer when your employees are cleaning the surgical centers. And when you think about the type of revenue and margins that are involved with that, it's definitely a game. So that's just an example of a business that you would never think would have an. And then territory and competition assumptions. I get clients all day that always say, I don't like the specific brand or industry because when I drive around, I see all this competition. Well, I would challenge you to look beyond that and look at the value proposition of a franchise on why they're even in that space. Because a lot of the franchises I know, they love competition. They love the fact that there are a lot of mom paws that are out there and other brands, because what that means is there's customer, right? And so you want to make sure that you have a customer base, right? The right demographic that isn't buy your product. So now the question is, why does that franchise differ from the other brands? Is it their marketing? Is it their branding? Is it the pricing? Those are the type of things that you want to look at. Mismatch of skills or franchisor support. So I would say one of the biggest reasons that people fail in franchising specifically is, number one, they run out of money. That happens all the time. Number two, I see, is that terrible decisions when it comes to business partners. I've seen so many, people that I know, their business eroded because they just thought that having their buddy from the Navy would be a great idea to start a business and buy a franchise, when you realize that you just hate their faith when it comes to business. So make sure there's a compelling reason why you want to be a partner. But another thing too is making sure there's alignment with that specific franchise, meaning there's a process of learning about the business model, but a lot of it is also getting to know the people that founded the franchise, that run the franchise, that are going to support you. If there's friction at the very beginning, if you don't like the way that those people speak to you, how they interact, their culture, their faces, you got to pull chocks, because you're going to be in a relationship with them for 5 to 10 years. And if you absolutely don't like these people in the beginning, there's no reason why you should force your way into owning that business. Because not only are you interviewing them, they're interviewing you. So you want to be as authentic as you are as possible. It's not going to be like a job interview. You want to show your true self to make sure that there's going to be alignment there, sort of like, in a marriage. And lastly, low marketing budget. You can't skip on marketing when it comes to franchise. There's a reason why products and services on average are more expensive than your typical mom and pop, because of the resources and sophistication of that franchise. And a lot of that has to do with, they just know how to market. They know how to reach their customers. And that may mean you're spending thousands of dollars every month on digital marketing, on Facebook ads. It costs money, right? And the franchisors are going to dictate a budget that they want you to spend every month, because they know what it takes to reach those customers. So when it comes to marketing and having a budget, make sure you're very conservative on your budget when you buy your franchise, because you got to know that you are going to have a pretty good cost when it comes to marketing on a day-to-day. So with that, I'm a franchise broker. I work throughout the nation. I help veterans and their families, and even non-veterans, understand about franchising, and also help them find the right one. It's kind of like me being the Tinder of franchising to help you find that right business. You can reach out to me at any time, and I'll be able to help you. I'll go ahead and get some of the questions that we have here for the next 15 minutes. John and Mike, do you guys have anything to add or any comments?
Well, one thing that I did want you to talk about a little bit, Gilbert, was you mentioned the franchise fee. And I wonder if you could make a few comments to help folks understand that the costs associated with starting a business in relation to the costs associated with starting a franchise. There's a misconception that franchising is very expensive. And I know that's not true because people don't understand the real costs associated with a startup. So could you talk about that just a little bit to help everybody understand that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you look online, you look at the initial investment of a franchise, they may throw out numbers out there. I'll give an example. Maybe they say between 150 to $300,000. That is you're all in to start your business, to get it up and running, and then maybe have 3 to 6 months of operating capital, keep it running, right? And part of that investment between 150 and 300 is a franchise fee. That's the first check that you're going to write to start your business, that you're sending that directly to the franchisor. It's not a recurring cost. It's just your pay to play to get into that business, right? And on average, it's about $50,000, $50,000, and which you can fund. You don't have to pay the whole thing. But what you're buying with that is, you're buying a territory that's going to be protected, that they can't sell another one inside of your territory. But essentially, when you compare that of starting a brand new business from scratch to starting a franchise, if it's the right franchise for you, and there's a lot of work that's entailed to find the right one for you, it is 100% worth that cost. Because when you think about the lessons learned, the challenges that franchisor, well, first of all, when you think about the way a franchisor starts, it's just a typical way that it's just a mom and pop that started a business, found success, went through all the ups and downs of creating that business, slowly found success. And then they said, for us to grow, we want to start this as a franchise. We want to expand through franchising. And so then that's when their responsibilities transfer to now finding the right people, selling them territories, training them, supporting them, and evolving the product, right? So when you think about all those lessons learned, not only from that founder, but then you also add into the equation all the other franchisees that bought into their business and now had their own lessons learned, that $50,000 is worth its weight in gold, because that's what you're essentially buying. Is you're buying time that you already got those lessons learned. They put it into the SOPs. You just got to go run with it. And then you're also saving money because of all the mistakes you'd be putting into, like, for example, digital marketing. I created both my businesses from scratch, and I know that I wasted a lot of money on the road to success because of not really understanding marketing, of how to work in my specific industry. And the problem is also I can't go ask my competitor or the other company next to me for their secrets and their special sauce, because of course they're not going to give it to me. But in franchising, you have that network, you have the franchisor. You can even ask the franchisee next door, like, hey, what are you doing here? You want to collaborate with some costs? There's a lot of costs that's involved. I'm sorry, there's a lot of savings that are involved when you are going into franchise.
Very good. Very good. So you want to jump into some questions now, Gilbert? You want me to practice them, or do you want to read them off yourself?
Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll read it myself.
All right.
How to contact with me because I want to get franchising. You got my contact info there. Great franchises have a lot of pros, but from my research, there's also a stigma that exists in regard to stepping outside of the box they allow you to play in. How negotiable, flexible are the terms generally with the franchise agreement? I'm sure this depends on the industry, but can you share your experience, please? Yes. So, franchises, they have the proven process. They created their SOPs. They have their franchise agreements. The only thing that I've seen as negotiable is really your territory side. But when it comes to a franchise agreement, it's usually pretty black and white. They're not gonna, shift on, their franchise fees, the marketing fee spend and all that, because they know that that's what works, right? And then, it's going to be more of you need them more than they need you. So they're not going I haven't seen them willing to negotiate on that because they can just go find somebody else that can develop your territory. With that being said, there's also a strategy of being able to find the right franchise that's in line with how entrepreneurial you are. Because I'm sure there's some people there that are super entrepreneurial. You want to be able to have that control of being able to pivot and adjust the way you grow your business. Granted, with franchises, they have a playbook, but it's still your business, right? You still hire who you want to hire. You still are going to be doing business, and they have those guidelines as long as you're representing that brand correctly, meaning not selling tacos at McDonald's, right? But there's also ways that you can be more flexible, such as with the stage of growth of a franchise, newer franchises I've seen being a lot more flexible, right? The ones that have maybe less than 20 territories that have been sold, they're learning from you just like you're learning from them. I've seen them being a lot more flexible because they're still in that growth stage, as compared to like maybe a long-standing franchise that has over 5,000 stores out there. They're going to be like, okay, you guys can go kick rocks or put your suggestion, the Theo suggestion box, which is the trash can, because you really got to just follow the process, right? And so, that's where I've seen that there's competition there. And then if a franchise has not expanded to your local area, but seems to be a good fit, are franchisors open to taking a chance in new areas with a new franchisee? Absolutely. So there's a caveat there. In the franchise world, we're regulated, which is a good thing, by the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. And what the intention of that is, they want to be able to protect you as a consumer, somebody buying your franchise. And so every year the legal documents come out in the spring, and that has all all the information about the franchise, and you have to sign for that. And it's just a way of protecting you, that you know everything that you're getting into. Well, there's certain states, I think it's 13 states, that they're called registration states. And what that means is, not only at the federal level, they want to look at the FDD, the franchise disclosure document, but at the state level, they want to take a crack at it, right? They want to review it, make sure that the state, the people in their state are also being protected. So there are some franchisors where it's challenging to get that FDD approved. It doesn't mean that it's a bad franchise. It's just, there's different rules and regulations. Which is California. There's some amazing franchises that I love that I want to start on the side as a passive business, but they do not want to do business in California because it's challenging in our state, right? So my suggestion, if there is a franchise that you like, you can reach out to them. You can reach out to them directly. You can reach out to a broker. They can find that out of like, hey, why aren't you franchising in our state? More than likely because they're not registered in the state. Can you speak about funding support available to vets for franchise? Yes. So believe it or not, there's a lot of stuff on media, on the internet, that says that there is a veteran SDA loan. There is not. They did away with that back in 2014 because unfortunately a lot of businesses failed and a lot of them defaulted, and SBA government said, no, we're not doing this anymore, right? But what there is there are funding brokers, kind of like a mortgage broker, where they have their reach to all the different banks that will, fund your business, or in the mortgage world, fund your home. But then there's a cost to it, right? You got to pay that broker. I don't know what it is, like maybe 5Gs or 4Gs baked into the loan. But what they're going to do is they're going to help you. They're going to find that bank. They're going to work with you to get you approved. But essentially your loan is with that bank, right? Hopefully that you see the similarities with mortgage. Well, with veterans, there are certain brokers that will provide a good discount on that broker fee. And so that's where I've seen the discounts when it comes to funding. I've also seen it where they may help you out, but if you have lower credit scores, they may say, well, you're a veteran. We don't care about that. We'll still fund you. But then when it comes to, buying a franchise, where I see discounts is with the franchise fee. There are some franchisors that are, waiving 50% of that franchise fee. So instead of paying $50K, you're paying $25K. On average, I see most of them provide a 10% discount. But buyer beware, please don't chase those discounts, because it doesn't matter if you get a 50% discount on a franchise if you end up losing $200K or you're short in that business because it wasn't the right one. So I got to definitely share that with you, because I have seen that happen in the past. Let's see here. I believe I got another 5 minutes, so I still can go through these. What sections on FDD should one pay attention to when looking at a franchise? That's a beast of a document. It comes out every year. On average, is about 200 pages. But really, the FDD is only the first 50 pages. And it's chapters 1 through 24, or items 1 through 24. The rest of the documents are just the franchise agreement, which you'll look at and sign later in the future. A lot of it is also just the extra stuff that's, it's important. But if you're really looking at the FDD, it's only the first 50 pages, so it's definitely manageable. I also have a document on how to read the FDD, and I can share that with John and Mike, and they can share that with you guys, because it's a nice little guide on how to navigate that, that piece of document. I like looking at items, which is your ongoing costs. And that's really like the unknown that a lot of people get confused about because, item 7 is the initial investment. They break it down with a table of what you're going to be spending initially to buy that business without really paying attention to what are you actually spending on a monthly basis for the next 10 years. That item's right. And then I like item 19, which is your financial performance. Always, be aware that item 19 is the franchisors have the freedom of how much information they want to put in there and how little information they put in there, right? I've noticed that franchisors that are killing it, that are doing awesome, they kind of use it as like a marketing tool because they may put out full P&Ls and averages and things like that because they're super proud of it. Then the next year they may not, they may have a weak year, and then also it's blank. So you gotta, just gotta be careful with that. It's whatever the franchisors are willing to publish in that chapter. But you're gonna get that real information when you start validating and speaking with the other owners that bought into that franchise to really, be able to look at their books and get an understanding of what their numbers are. And then let's see here. I think I got a couple more questions I can go through. As a franchisee, your marketing dollars that are directed at Facebook ads or Google ads are already optimized and ran by the franchisor, correct? So all you have to do is respond to the inquiries from the person that received the ad and further sell them on a product. It all depends on the franchisor. So I got some franchisors that are like a business in a box, and it's amazing because it's a marketing strategy done for you in a way that they know how to market. They know how to do this, whether it's the franchisor or if they use a third party marketing company. And so they're going to create a strategy for you, and they're going to tell you, okay, Mike and John, we're going to, because you have a goal of breaking even in 6 months, we're going to set this marketing budget. I know it's expensive, but it's going to get us to where you want to be. And so with that, it's going to be a perfect blend of Facebook or Google, of this. And what we want you to do is to market locally with the Better Business Bureau, the Chamber of Commerce's and stuff like that, right? And then on a weekly or bi-weekly level, you may be meeting together to look at the different KPIs and be able to adjust that marketing strategy. It's all really done for you, right? And then I've seen other franchisors are like, hey, this is great. You should do Facebook marketing. I'll give you your page and you guys just go figure it out, but run with it. So there's different levels and you got to find one that matches you because there's some people that are like, hey, I want that freedom to do what I want to do. So that might be a better business model for you versus somebody dictating for you how you should do marketing. And then last question, how do we put forth a franchise fee and associate buy-in without risking your own money? As you said, I would say the gold standard that most people do is use an SBA loan. And depending on the loan amount, and the reason why people do that is because it's a 10-year loan. Yes, the interest rates are high, but the thing about it is that paid off early without any penalty. But what it gives you is that runway, a runway to profitability, that runway that you can spend your money comfortably for marketing so you can get to that profitability and expand from there. And what they like for a loan at 100K or less, what you should expect is to spend at least 10% of the loan value. So think about it as spending $15,000 of your own cash. And then a few months later, or however long it takes, they cut you 150K check. That's been the lowest amounts of liquid injection from your own pocket going into it. But I've also seen very creative ways of being able to fund a business in other ways. So thank you for your time. That is it. I know I speak a lot. I have a lot to cover, but if you want, hit me up. If you have any questions, feel free, but thank you for having me.
Thank you, Gilbert. You did a great job. We really appreciate it.